Hello and welcome to the Behind the Fic podcast, a podcast that interviews fanfiction writers and kind of asks them about the process and makes them feel special and all that jazz. Didn't know I'd make a Chicago reference today, but it just happened. I am Fate. I go by the username Fateful Fairy on most fanfiction places. I write a lot, which is maybe a bad thing or maybe a good thing. I don't know. Today I have a new co-host. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, that's me. Hi, I'm Skipper. I go by simply Skipper on most sites, though I also do print stork on AO3. Pronouns are they, them. I like writing, I like reading, and I don't write much, honestly, because I just spend the whole time thinking and not writing.
Fair.
Um, yeah, that's that's about it.
And our guest today.
Hi, I am Clove. I go by cyraclove on Tumblr and on AO3. I I started writing fan fiction, oh gosh, probably middle school. I don't want to age myself too much, but probably about 13 or 14 years ago. Um, but I really started publishing stuff at the beginning of the pandemic, so like March 2020. I kind of found the online Legend of Zelda community when we were all stuck inside of our houses. And it's been really good for me. So I'm excited to be here with y'all today to chat about that.
Yeah. The Zelda community really is amazing.
Really,
Um,
yeah.
and since you're doing a one shot, I think you're doing the whole thing.
Yes, I'm going to
Yeah.
try to not take a super long time. It's not very lengthy
No, it's
though.
even if you do take a long time, like I think people on the Discord server were saying like it's okay if it takes longer.
Okay,
Like it's I mean
okay.
also it's a really good work too. So
Thank you.
basically like with other one shots they only did an excerpt, but for this one for listeners, like you're getting the whole work, so you won't have to go uh to a link and read and then come back, or I mean you could. But it's all right here, which is
Mhm.
great. I don't think there are any trigger warnings. It's just kind of like a nice fluffy Revelink-ish.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I don't think there's nothing that comes to mind. I think we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so far there hasn't been any trigger warnings in the only third episode, but
Excellent.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna get off the Craigbot website, so I don't need that anymore. Okay. So Clove, take it away.
Okay. It began with a look, a stinging glare that lingered in his mind long after, a disdainful sneer that harbored something more than envy, something deeper than resentment. It had been enough to stun Revali into silence for once, the way the young Hylian's eyes bore into him from behind locks of sweat-drenched hair. Link had looked up from where he'd fallen on the flight range landing, a thin stream of crimson blooming from his lip and dripping off of his chin, icy flecks of snow lashing at his face. Something foreign stirred in Revali's chest as a shiver flew up his spine that chilled him more than the frigid Tabantha air ever had. Before he could open his beak to admonish Link for his poor form, to spit out yet another biting quip about his performance, Link wrested himself up from the ground. His blood painted the snow when he spoke, delicate pinpricks of red slowly sinking into the dense white. Again, he'd rasped, and snatched his bow up as he stood on shaky legs. As Revali watched the young man once again prepare to leap from the lofty landing with paraglider in hand, he suddenly and inexplicably found himself wondering what he might taste like in that moment, all iron and salt. It was infuriating. In the weeks that followed, Revali attempted to keep his distance. Avoiding Link wasn't too terrible a feat, as he was much too preoccupied with Zelda, as recalcitrant as she was royal. Revali had even discovered her hiding around the village on numerous occasions, seeking a moment's respite. Her emerald eyes would plead silently with him, and he would leave her be, feeling more akin to the princess than he would have ever thought possible. Mastering Meadow needed to be his focus, he would remind himself, not this amateur, this pathetic excuse for a champion. While Revali had spent countless grueling hours honing his skill, all Link had done was stumble upon a sword. That they both trained for the same battle was the only thing that united them. Had Link not been Hylia's chosen, Revali thought, He'd be nothing more than a lowly farmhand playing at being a warrior. In Revali's mind, Link was still just that. He had to be. The alien ache in his chest from their interaction on the flight range would return if he allowed himself to consider otherwise. Sunrises turned over and twisted into sunsets as Calamity Ganon's ever-looming shadow spread across Hyrule, swallowing what little hope its people still clung to as time continued to slip away. Revali memorized Meadow's every mechanism while Link tirelessly trained, both somehow existing together and apart simultaneously. Zelda continued to pray. They all prayed. The chill of evening in the village was beautiful, albeit bitter, for the night winds brought with them silence and the scent of the pines. It was the only time when Revali was awarded with some semblance of peace, though he endlessly warred with his own mind, a turbulent sky of relentless thoughts that denied him true rest. To his chagrin, he often found that his most tumultuous thoughts were of Link. It enraged him, being plagued by a man so much lesser than he. One sleepless night after another, Revali had managed to convince himself that it was simply because of the injustice of the entire situation. So unfair was it that Link had been awarded a position that he did not deserve, and Revali was merely trying to make sense of it all. It had nothing to do with the way he had felt those many weeks ago when Link's stormy eyes had locked with his, how his breath had caught in his throat when he heard him speak for the first time. In fact, he'd all but forgotten about it. When Revali heard Link speak a second time, winter had settled in entirely, shrouding Tabantha in a shimmering blanket of blinding white. He knelt by the small hearth in the center of his roost, watching the embers softly flicker and die. After a failed attempt at sleep, he decided to get an early start rather than wasting any more of his time. He waited in the pitch of early morning for the sunlight to creep above Heber Peak, a whisper of a breeze gently rustling his feathers. "You've been avoiding me," a voice cut through the silence. Revali's heart seized with that unwelcome, startling twinge of something he'd yet to name. Though he felt Link's presence, he did not raise his head, keeping his gaze trained on the dying flames. "Oh, the hero can speak in complete sentences," Revali drawled, his tone dry. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Link's jaw clench. "I speak when I care to," Link retorted, "and it's not often that I do." Revali scoffed, a mirthless smirk on his face. "To what do I owe such an honor, then?" "You're supposed to be training me," Link said, "but I've been trying to figure everything out on my own." Revali let out a squawking laugh this time, cocking his head as he finally looked up. "Are you not Hylia's chosen champion? He who wields the sword that seals the darkness, protector of the crown and savior of us all, yes? Surely you don't need my help." "When we first arrived here, you said you would—" "When I said I would show you how it's done," Revali snapped, making the end of Link's sentence die in his throat. "I meant, of course, by besting you, not by teaching you." Link inhaled deeply, eyes flashing beneath his knitted brow. The feathers adorning the shoulders of his snow-quill tunic fluttered slightly in the breeze as he took a seat on the stone floor opposite Revali, crossing his legs and resting his hands calmly on his knees. They regarded one another in silence from across the fire, their faces obscured by sparks of amber dancing above the flames. "I don't recall inviting you to join me." "Revali," Link started, the sound of his own name from the Hylian's lips twisting the knot in his stomach. "I respect you. Your skill as a marksman is undeniably impressive, but I don't have to tell you that. What I'm trying to say is that I want to learn from you." He paused then, his eyes trailing downward. When he spoke again, a hint of a tremor colored his voice. "I need you to help me because I'm not ready. I'm scared." As satisfying as the admission of fear should have been for Revali, it wasn't at all. Why, out of everyone, had Link chosen him to confide in? Surely Daruk was more of a mentor to him, Urbosa more of a sage than he. Mifa, with her gentle words and kind demeanor, would have been a better choice. The walls of pretense came crumbling down around him, and all Revali felt was shame. Despite the posturing and the honorifics, Link was merely a man, and he was frightened, just as anyone would be. Just as he was, though he dare not say so. Before he had a chance to even begin to register a response, he saw Link's eyes grow wide as they flickered up toward the sky. Something had diverted his attention away from Revali entirely, his mouth parting slightly as he sat there, transfixed. Revali raised a brow at him. And here I was, thinking we were having an actual conversation. What could you possibly be staring at? What is that? Turning to look, Revali saw familiar, beryl green rivers of light weaving their way through the twilight. Like a gleaming veil concealing some otherworldly place, the ethereal light hung in the air as if by magic. Distant stars shone through, accenting the deeply hued sky with pinpricks of white. It's just the aurora, Revali said plainly, unwilling to admit that he was just as captivated now as he had been the first time he'd witnessed it. I've never seen anything like it, Link murmured, craning his neck to get a better view. Revali watched Link then, his face aglow with viridescent light. Never had he thought that a grown man could look at the sky with the wondrous eyes of a child, and for a fleeting moment, he was envious of Link for a different reason. The light that he saw in him was as bright and as brilliant as the light above them, the likes of which he'd not seen in anyone, perhaps in himself, long ago. Where had it gone? Your eyes, Link said, the sudden comment causing Revali to startle. He clucked his tongue. What? The corner of Link's mouth quirked up as he shifted to face him, his expression soft. Revali felt his breath hitch as his entire body tensed in anticipation of the other man's response. Link gazed back up at the aurora. They're the same color, he whispered. Revali's damnable heart flew to his throat, any coherent thought evading him. Words were out of his reach now, language a distant memory. His mouth went dry as he turned away, trying desperately not to choke on his own tongue. What a ridiculous thing to say, he stammered as he rose to his feet. He heard Link chuckle softly. Just an observation. Well, in the future, do keep your observations to yourself. It's nearly sunup. I need to train, and so do you. Revali turned to leave, longing to be anywhere else. He could have very easily taken to the skies right then, a powerful gust in his wake. He could be at the flight range in moments, his only focus his arrow and its target. Instead, he paused, cursing himself for what he was about to say. Flight range in an hour. We can start with that atrocious form of yours. He took off then, the force of his gale sending him soaring above the rooftops. Flying swiftly toward the mountains, an odd urge to look back nagged at him until he could resist it no longer. Relenting, he turned in enough time to catch a glimpse of Link standing at the railing of his roost, watching him. He was smiling.
The applause never shows on here. I don't like it.
Are you applauding?
I am applauding.
Thank you.
And I want everyone to hear it, but it's okay. As long as you know I'm applauding.
I hear it in my heart.
Very well done. Like, you read it so well, but then you also, like, added, like you became, like, the characters a little bit, like, inflections and stuff, and I was like, oh.
Thank you. Revali's so sassy. I feel like I can't read it without a little bit of sass.
Like, she's acting. She brought acting into this.
Yeah, you were popping off.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Hey.
Skipper, do you want to start with one of your questions?
My questions. I don't know, man. My brain just stopped working.
That's okay. I'll start with one of mine.
Please.
The main reason I've been excited to cover this is because I've been in awe of your descriptions.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah, like how you paint a picture so seamlessly and like with so much varying vocabulary at the same time. Like, I would have to read it a million times to actually like understand. Not understand, but like not understand. I understand what it's saying, but like understand like how a person could do that.
You're so kind. Thank you.
Do you have a process for crafting your descriptions, or does it just come naturally?
Oh, that's a hard question. Process, not really. I feel like I take a lot of inspiration from things that I read. And so, you know, if I find like a word, a description of, I'm really big on colors. So if there's a description of a color that sticks in my mind, I'll say, ooh, I like that, and try to use it when I write myself. I'm really big on colors. I'm really big on like just senses, right? What are you feeling? Especially if they're outside, the wind, the water, is it cold? Is it hot? Because that just puts you don't think about those things just in your general life, but when you're reading, that puts you where the characters are, and it feels so much more real. And that's something I appreciate when I'm reading, so I try to emulate that in my own writing.
I think that's the thing about when we're writing is that we forget that the person who's going to be reading it isn't in our own heads.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not
Yeah,
seeing it. They're not
exactly.
seeing the picture as perfectly. They're not feeling, you have to write it in a certain way that they're seeing it just like you are.
Exactly.
They're coming into it with a blank slate as opposed to all these mishmash in our head of like, oh, they're here. I can see it,
Because it's vivid in your head.
Yeah.
But maybe not when you put it down on paper.
Right. So
Right.
it's about translating that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I get what you're saying, but you're also amazing. So
You're
you do
so
it so
sweet.
well.
Thank you.
Skipper, do you have a question?
I guess the stereotypical question, like what kind of led you to like, oh, what if this happened? Like, I guess your muse. What was your rat in your chef hat?
For the my Remy
That reference.
pulling my
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
For
Who's
this
your Remy?
particular fic, or
Yeah, like this
Yeah?
one or in
Okay.
general, you can do both.
So this one was actually a gift fic for a friend of mine, Basil. This was the first time I'd written this pairing, and it's very slight, like it's like Revelink if you squint. But I really wanted to do something, of course, since it's a present that he would enjoy. And all the pre-calamity stuff is very, I just think it's heavy, but it's heavy in a poignant way. And so I kind of wanted to, how are they feeling, before they're going to go die? I mean, we know that happens. So I wanted to kind of look into those feelings. And especially with Revali, I remember when I encountered him in the game for the first time, I was like, this guy is a jerk. But like, there's a reason he's that way. And so I kind of wanted, there's all these things, that are influencing him. Why does he feel the way he does towards Link? Why does he feel like the weight of the world is on his shoulders? So I kind of wanted to look into that. I also took some inspiration from Basil's fics, just so that he would enjoy it. So that's really where it came from. So this was my first time writing the pairing. So to answer your question, I just kind of wanted to look at the inner workings of their relationship.
It's epic.
Yeah, I really like you're talking about pre-calamity.
Yeah.
And like it is a suggestive reveling fic, but then there's also themes of how they're like, how you mentioned they were all praying and like Link is scared of not being ready and Revali has a little bit of insecurity, so I like how it's kind of a romance thing, but then it's also you incorporated a very believable characterization of their fears heading into the calamity.
They're so young, right? Like these are kids. And it's, you're like, oh, it's a video game. But if you put it in the context of what if these were real people, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So, I kind of like to expound upon that. And I like to read a lot of pre-calamity fic because I enjoy the angst.
Yes.
It's good.
So do I.
To think about, like, one of my favorite things about, like, pre-calamity fics is when they only focus on pre-calamity and then afterwards you know what's going to happen, but they don't. So you're like, uh-oh, this is going to be so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's called situational irony. It's one of the 3 ironies that they taught us in middle school that I don't remember, but it's one of the 3 ironies where like where the audience knows what's going to happen, but the characters don't. So you're just kind of sitting on the outside, like,
uh-oh,
nerd, you're gonna die. But yeah, but that was done really well.
Thank you.
You used that irony well.
Okay.
I think it's my turn to ask a question. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, this kind of has to do with what we're talking about. So, I don't really ship these two because, as people may know, I am Zelda and Link all the way, but I
What?
really
You
Classic.
don't say.
what? No, but I really did enjoy this. Just from a literary perspective and how well it was written and pacing and whatever. And another thing I really liked was how in character they were. Um, it's just like I could hear Revali, like it's this Sean Chiplock came alive in my mind
Oh.
when I read this. And so my question is, how do you manage stepping away from your own head and what you might say and into the heads of these characters?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Honestly, like I said, when I first, saw Revali's cutscenes when I was playing the game for the first time, I didn't like him at all. I was like, what is this guy's deal? But then, later, like after playing Age of Calamity, after beating the game, and especially after like seeking out more in the DLC, there's a lot of good Revali dialogue in the DLC. Um, I kind of was like, well, I kind of feel this guy. Like, I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Right.
I find that there's some sass in myself. And so I was just trying to emulate him. And like you said, Sean Chiplock he brings this character to life.
Yeah.
And it's so I do try to hear his voice. I went on
Mhm.
YouTube and like listened to him
Oh,
speak a
yeah.
few times just to kind of get the vibe of
Yeah.
Revali. And this was my first time writing him, so I was kind of nervous because a characterization I find stresses me out the most because I'm like, would this character say this? I that's why I have a lot of friends beta my fix for me, and I try to really focus on that. I'm like, tell me if this is out of character because I don't want to misrepresent anybody.
Mhm.
Um, but with Link is so malleable.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really, I mean, obviously there are some character traits about him from the games that are canon, right? Like we
Yeah.
know. And you can kind of assume things about him from the things that he does in the game and just the way he is. But I mean, in fic, he's kind of whoever you want him to be a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So I tried not to stray too far away from canon Link, but also I did try to keep in mind that he's a 17-year-old kid. Like, if
Right.
I were 17 years old and I had all of this pressure on me, how would I feel?
Mhm.
So I tried to bring that into it. And I like the two different personalities. I feel like they clash, but at the same time, they have so much in common. That's like,
Yeah.
some people, have you ever had too much in common with someone to the
Right.
point where
Yeah.
you don't get along? I feel like that's how these two are.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Makes sense.
I digressed a bit, but
No, that's you kept going and you were so smart
okay.
that I forgot that I had a brain. So, um yeah, I definitely agree. I think that romantic or not, I think it's a very interesting combination of characters because they both feel like the world's upon them
Oh yeah.
and that pressure can be a lot. And I feel like Revali is young as well as
Mm.
far as the reader go.
As far as we know, yeah.
Yeah, as far as we know. So he puts up this front of, well, I'm the best because he knows he has to be the best.
And I agree with you, and I kind of get this feeling that the rivalry with Link it's totally of his own making. And I
Yeah,
think it might be to kind of distract
yeah,
himself from what he actually has to do. He's like, oh, here's this guy trying to show me up when really, they're all trying to work together. So I think he's also afraid. And so the rivalry is just a way to kind of make it less scary, maybe. I don't know. I kind of felt that way while I was playing the game.
no, I get that. Like his rivalry with Link is an opportunity for him to say, "Oh, I can do this,"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, look, I can do that. He can't do that. He can't do this. I can do this. He can
Uh-huh.
feel better about himself
Exactly.
in a situation where every day they're closer to something he doesn't know what to
Mhm.
expect about. So yeah, totally. And yeah, that was good. That was a good answer. Um, You're too smart.
Yeah,
Get away.
I
Go
don't,
away.
I don't,
You're too
I
smart.
don't know if I'm smart. I just talk a lot.
Mm,
You
Yeah.
talk a
Thank
lot,
you.
but then you don't trip over your words like I do.
yeah, you're
So
like so smooth.
yeah,
Oh, well, thank you. I do a lot of public speaking,
that's it.
yeah, for my job and for my career. So I speak a
Yeah.
lot whether I want to or not. But thank you.
Oh,
That's a nice compliment.
Skipper, do you have a question?
You keep answering all my questions, dude.
Oh no,
Oh no.
You're good.
that's okay if you don't.
I'm sorry. Something. Oh, I guess I was kind of curious. Like, it's not entirely related to the fic, but how do you see, like, what kind of person do you think Link is? Because he's very different depending on
Good
who.
question.
Ooh, yeah. And like I was saying earlier, he's kind of an amalgam. Like, I mean, they were even like the developers were saying like we want him to be relatable. We
Mhm.
want you to be able to relate to him. So, when they first created the character, I feel like that's why he doesn't speak. I
Yeah.
mean, we as a fandom have interpreted the reason he doesn't speak for, forever. Um, but I think that that's why the game developers decided not to give him a voice because it's like he's kind of you. So it's like however
Mhm.
you want to play the game. But when I write him, especially Breath of the Wild Link, if we're talking about this particular incarnation, I think he's quiet and honest. Obviously, he's brave, and he knows what he's doing. But I think he's kind of a bit of a spaz. Like, honestly, I think he's kind of a little bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
He's just kind of running around. And I know we make jokes about that all the time, but, is setting stuff on fire. So I think he would kind of be witty. Like, I think if we were to actually talk to him, that I'd like to be his friend. Like, I feel like he'd be
Yeah.
cool to hang out with. I have
Yeah.
another fic in which he speaks a lot more, and he's kind of roguish, honestly. Like, I feel like he'd be kind of a ladies' man or a man's man, whichever, both, either. Um, so I have other fics where he talks a lot more. Fate, I think you've read one of them, my Zalink one. He's kind of a charmer a little bit. So I
I've
think if
read a
he
lot of
could
things.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But I feel like he would be kind
Uh-huh.
of suave in like a
I think
dorky way.
I think what you're touching on a little bit with the clumsiness and dorkiness is that what comes to mind for me is that ever since 13 years old when he pulled the sword, everyone's looked at him with this pressure, and so
Yeah.
he's been, that's where the selective mutism comes from, and so he doesn't really properly know how to exist socially.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's where my mind goes, where he just he's clumsy, and so he's quiet because he doesn't know what to say and how to be the perfect hero that everyone expects him to be. But in the situation that he does talk, he isn't well accustomed to, um, you know, exactly what to say. So he does it dorkily. That's not a
Yeah,
word,
no, yeah.
but I get, yeah. That's where my mind goes.
I think he's cute, right?
He is very
So,
cute.
and I have a long fic, may it rest in peace. I don't know when I'm ever going to update it.
Oh,
Um,
Oh.
um, in which I kind of look at that, like he puts his foot in his mouth a lot because he's not really sure what to say,
yeah,
especially to people, when he's speaking to people who are important to him. I think that's definitely when it gets to be more difficult.
yeah, definitely.
So again, I went off on a little tangent about a lot of Link feelings. I have a lot of feelings about him. I could talk the whole time about just Link.
I also have a lot of feelings about Link. He's very very cute. Anyway, um, I have one more question
Okay.
in my little notes thing here. So you touch on this a little bit, and forgive me if I'm like basically repeating topics, but so you mentioned in your notes that you had a beta reader. Can you explain a bit about that process and how beneficial it is to get a second perspective? Yeah.
Is
Oh,
this a call out?
absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, is this a call out? I have never once used a beta reader, and I feel like you're making fun of me here, even though you didn't.
I had no idea that you never used it.
You're good.
I actually have also never used a beta reader. So,
And that's okay. I didn't for a long time. I am I'm pretty active on Discord. I have I'm a part of like 2 or 3 servers. And one in particular is just for like writing resources.
right.
And so I spend a lot of time on there, throwing ideas back and forth with people. And my beta reader for this fic is my friend's son, whose fics she is an incredible world builder. I just admire her so much in that respect. I mean, all of her writing is fantastic, but that in particular, and just in real life, she's very much a part of academia, and so that kind of helps as well with the grammar and that's I find that I miss that a lot. So it's important to have someone go back over and read it just for that aspect. But then after that's all done, after you've got the grammar and the spelling and the punctuation out of the way, it's like, does this flow? Is this cohesive? Like I was saying earlier, is the characterization appropriate?
Right.
And so to have someone who also writes fic for Legend of Zelda read your stuff and say, okay, here's what I think about this, has been super beneficial for me. It's also been difficult because constructive criticism is hard to receive. I think for a lot of people, but especially for me. And even though you know that this person is trying to help you and you've asked for them to help you, it's still like, oh, I kind of feel like I've done something wrong. So I feel like it's been really good. It's been beneficial. It's been healthy for me to have someone else look at my writing, give me advice, and for me to say, yes, I see where you're coming from. I'm taking this into account and it's making me a better writer. So it's been good for me personally, and it's been good for me as a writer to have someone else look at my stuff.
Yeah. Totally. I agree.
Yeah. You said you've never had a beta before.
I've like had people. I've had my friend Emily. I like sent it to my friend. I'm like, does this make sense? But
Right,
otherwise,
yeah.
like I've never had like an official like. I don't really share to the Discord and be like, what does this look like? I just kind of post it and be like, I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of wrote this. But I think that it's a good practice to get a second perspective, especially for things you really want to make sure you got right or things you're unsure about,
Oh yeah, and I think there's always room for improvement. Like I was saying about my long fic that I started in March 2020, back when the pandemic began. I read that and some of it doesn't even sound like me. Like it doesn't really sound like my voice as a writer anymore. So even just in a couple of months, well, it's been a year. It's been a year. Gosh, it feels like it just started. Even just in a year, I feel like I've changed so much. And I feel like a lot of that influence is because of this wonderful online community that we have of just people who are incredibly creative and artistic and insightful. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of it.
Exactly. I agree. They're all amazing.
Yeah.
Skipper, do you have any more questions before I move on to the Tumblr question?
Oh, we have a Tumblr question. How fun.
Yeah.
Oh, fancy. It's Tumblr time.
All right, Tumblr
time.
Oh no.
All right. This is from Quill and Ink 333. She's amazing.
Okay.
I think she goes by she. If she doesn't, I apologize. I don't know you that well, and I would like to.
Okay.
Hi. So BTF question. Ooh. What was the first piece of media that you ever wrote fanfiction for? If you'd rather not say for fear of being judged, because in that case I know how you feel, give us a vague summary. So this goes to like all 3 of us.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
You're the guest.
Me. Okay. Thank you. Ooh. Probably, and this was so long ago, probably Harry Potter.
All right.
Like I have, but like I said earlier, I have a graveyard on my, desktop of fic from multiple fandoms: Harry Potter, Supernatural, Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think Harry Potter, that was the very first fan fiction I started reading. So I think that's the first I started writing for. But like I said, nothing's ever been published until all my Zelda stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think I was about 13. Which was math. 8 years ago. Math? 8 years ago. Yeah, I was in middle school. I think I was in middle school. I was obsessed with this TV show Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
And so I wrote something for that. It was horrible, and I refuse to look at it now. But that was the first time. Life.
Publishing Warrior Cats and I think some Hunger Games fics.
Oh, I forget.
And some
Me
other
too.
stuff.
Forgot about that.
But I don't know. I can't remember. Also, Miraculous Ladybug. That was a thing.
What's up?
And now I just kind of do whatever.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. This is like a smooth. This is very smooth today. Like
We're
it's
chilling.
It's ending. Okay, so that's kind of all we have. It's already been 40 minutes. It's so cool.
Yeah, it went by really quickly.
Do you have anything to add, Clove or Skipper?
I do not. I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I'm so grateful to get to know you guys better.
Yeah. Anytime. I don't bite. I just write a lot of angst. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I may seem intimidating, but really I just kind of sit here.
We just all have a lot of feelings.
Yes, we do. And we channel it through writing.
Yes.
So you can find, is it cyraclove?
Cyraclove.
Kira, I think I've always said it as cyraclove.
Well, that makes sense phonetically because it's a C. It's not your fault. That's on me.
Okay, anyway. The links to Cyraclove's work is going to be in the description below, as well as the links to her AO3 and Tumblr and all those wonderful things. I'll also put down my links and Skipper's links.
Just called Tumblr wonderful.
Yes.
Have you ever been to Tumblr?
I live there. It's a wonderful place.
Right.
I think we have very different definitions of wonderful.
Well, I mean, because I'm basically in the Zelda community, so right now it's
yeah, they're cool. They're cool.
99 plus notifications in my feed, and it's all Breath of the Wild 2 art, and I just kind of scroll through and I'm like, this is nice.
It's wonderful. It's
Good
wonderful.
It's very chill, and I don't really go into any other fandoms. Because I know that the rest of them are very toxic, so I just stay in my little Zelda bubble, and honestly, it is wonderful.
We've got a nice bubble.
Yeah.
We chillin'.
It's a good bubble. Yes, we chillin'.
Well, yeah, it's through that bubble that I found, what if we just made a podcast where people talk about fan fiction that they wrote? And I'm like, this is perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
What could get more wholesome than this?
Exactly. Very wholesome. And that's a good reminder that you've been listening to the Behind the Fic podcast. The next episode, I'm Fate. You guys know that I won't be in the next episode. But you'll have Kip, Sarcastic Mudkip. You guys have listened to her before. And who's the other one? Hold on. I think it's Owl.
I think that's
Sorry.
right. Looking at the schedule.
Kip and Owl. Now now everyone's listening to her. Yeah, Kip and Owl. They're going to be interviewing Kit Moon and her fake Jaded Seas. Again,
Ooh.
I don't know pronouns. It could be there. Could be. I don't know.
That's an excellent fic, though.
But yes, that's gonna be very exciting. But they'll still be on schedule. I just won't be talking. But yeah, so that's in the next couple weeks. But other than that, we're gonna sign off for today. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Bye bye.